probably.
Where did I get the idea that the Mary and Mark was Mary Magdalene?
There's also, and she doesn't include this in there, but there is a one of the versions of a similar story is Mary Magdalene. And I think, and I don't think it is ointments. I think and this may be Matthew's, because Matthew is not on the page here. So maybe in Matthew's, she comes and anoints Jesus, but not with a perfume. But don't quote me on that. I think but there's a similarity, right? So the stories are similar enough that again, the glomming together to say, well, this is all happening, because then what happens is, especially with the Mary Magdalene story, Mary Magdalene in that story is, a follower of Jesus and in some ways kind of a disciple. She's a pretty significant follower. And in the story in Luke, it says that she was a sinner. And so what people have done is say, well, Mary Magdalene was a sinner because they put those two stories together. And so she gets kind of this tradition of being, well, she was a sinner. And different, they get it from other places as well. But all this is what Billups is trying to say. Let's focus. And so that's why I wanted to read the whole John passage to say all of this is in the back of your head because you all are good Bible folks who have heard these stories over and over again. But if we focus on the John story, that helps us kind of dig into what we're doing with Mary of Bethany. But then also in the back of our mind is this story of right before Mary and Martha are both engaging Jesus around this pretty incredible story of Lazarus. And so she makes the point when they get together in the next chapter, it's probably a party. They're probably celebrating that Lazarus is alive. So let me take well, she's got some good ways to ask these questions, so I'll use her questions. How are food offerings so much more than about the food? Let's talk about the theology of the Baptist potluck or the Baptist casserole, right? What food offerings communicate or what do food offerings communicate to those receiving them? Share from your own experience of giving or receiving an offering of food in a time of grief or loss. Talk about food and what that means spiritually, communally.
Before our potluck on Sunday,
Yeah.
and there was just this joyous feeling. It really was. And I was headed towards the Roger Williams room. Saw somebody, can't remember who it was, but I said, "Are you coming in to eat with us?" And this person said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be in there a bit." Headed the other way, but kept coming back. And I said, "We're gonna break bread." And it I don't know, it just kind of hit me that that's what it was all about. Is
right.
We're gonna break bread together like the early Christians.
That's right.
Jesus when he was here, and
Absolutely.
it is more than just the food. It's
That's
the joy. It's the fellowship, camaraderie, fellowship.
Yeah. Yeah, there's depending on how you translate the Greek and when Jesus says at the Last Supper, whenever you eat of this meal, do it in remembrance of me. Depending on the version and the translation, it can be read whenever you eat a meal, whenever you're together eating a meal, do it in remembrance of me. And so your break bread comment is appropriate, right? We think about breaking bread with this special moment of a little bitty bread and a little cup of grape juice, but it can also be a Baptist potluck breaking of bread.
Well, and I think there are many Christians, numerous people who would not eat a bite until they prayed.
Yeah.
Well, and receiving a meal when you're grieving, when when you've lost somebody, it's just such a show of support. It's like the person saying, "I'm going to help sustain you."
Yeah, right.
This.
Right. Sustain, physically, but also emotionally, relationally, spiritually.
Yeah. And sorry to keep talking, but when my brother died, he was 42, he died of cancer. It was out in Maryland. He was working for NSA at that time. And anyway, that stuff is not important. What is important is that my mom and dad, my aunts, my sister, we all went out to Maryland and I don't remember, I mean, we didn't have family out there that brought us food, but I think, my aunts took care of the food. But every time, like, there would be, maybe people staying in a hotel over here and another group over here, but we all gathered at Ed's house where his wife was. And so every time somebody would show up, the food would come out.
Pull the food back out.
Have another meal,
Yeah,
matter if we had just had one, it would all come back out.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's awkward to try to make conversation. And so having
Yes,
something to do
It
and
is.
smooths that along.
Social.
Gives you a reason to
Yeah.
show up,
There you go.
because I'm bringing something.
Uh-huh.
It's more than anything, it's often a hug, but you use the food as an excuse.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
bring this to you and
Mhm.
that is how I would contact, yeah.
In the chapter she writes about Louise Butts. If you all read anybody who read the chapter want to summarize Louise's story?
Louise grew up with, she and her mom, or her mom and this other woman, Louise,
The mom of the author, yeah.
were best friends. And she used to love going to their home because she made all of this wonderful food after school. And when her mom was sick with cancer, she had lots of food and lots, that was her being able to be there. Sorry.
Well, and you know how it is when you want people to gather. Say there's gonna be food and you get a lot more than
Right.
people there than if you do.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, she writes in that same section about Louise, cause she talks about the pies and the, what you call it, first dinner, first supper, he gets out of school, it's time for first supper. And then I go home and have second supper. But she writes in there that beyond the 12 disciples, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus were Jesus' closest, best friends.
Yes.
I think that's a powerful statement, right?
Indeed.
It's just a meal time, right? And it becomes I can imagine this experience of everybody gets together for the funeral lunch, right? Gets together for the casseroles because Lazarus is gone, and then that food becomes the celebratory food, right? And so this food is the same, but the purpose of it flips, right?
And I choose to believe that Jesus was comfortable at their home.
Yes.
I mean,
yes,
if he'd
yes.
gone to somebody else's home in Bethany, they might have been intrusive or
Right.
not let him rest or,
Right.
ask deep theological questions or whatever. But he was apparently treated like family at, Lazarus and Mary and Martha. And the value of that, given all the yanks on his person
Sure.
and time,
Yeah.
would have been unspeakably
It's
wonderful.
a place where you could rest and be himself.
Well, I'm reminded of a story. My mother was a wonderful pie baker, and she remembered numerous people's favorite pie.
Wow, yeah.
And she would make a point to make it for them on their birthdays. And she also made pies and put them in her freezer, so she could pull one out whenever necessary.
Uh-huh.
And when my brother and Ray and his brother and wife, we were all out there cleaning out my mother's house after she passed. And one of the things we thought of was the freezer. And we went down and found an apple pie that she'd made.
Oh.
And we made coffee
Yeah.
and got out ice cream. And we ate my mom's last apple pie as a celebration.
Beautiful moment.
Yeah, it's very.
Beautiful moments.
Reunion.
Yeah. Well, and it's a great parallel with what happens at this dinner, right? So they're sitting at this dinner, and all of a sudden Mary comes out with this huge jar, and huge is the point, right? Phillips makes this great point. It's like this is the kind of perfume that you just need a little bit, right? And she pours the whole thing. I don't know if you've ever broken a bottle of perfume or something, right? But it fills the whole house. Imagine the immensity of this odor, of this smell, as it becomes then this experience of the Greek word. Which book is that in? The Greek word is ellipsin, the same word used when talking about preparing a body from burial. She does this anointing as Jesus is still alive of his body, kind of acknowledging that he, knowing that where he's headed, and acknowledging indeed that he's somebody that she wants to worship.
I think it's so amazing that that he understands that too. He knows exactly what her intent is, or what it means
Right.
to him.
Right.
I suppose even though she might not have had that thought, oh, I'm preparing him for burial.
Yeah. Right. Yes. And John knows it, right? I mean, by the time it's written down, we know that it's like the foreshadowing. What would your experience be if we were sitting here and somebody came in and started pouring perfume over Pat's feet? And
They don't smell that bad.
and like using her hair to wash it off, right? What would you imagine that experience would feel like in a moment?
It would be awkward.
Yeah. So where she uses his tense, right? There would be some tension in
Yeah,
the room.
We'd probably wonder why.
Why? What's happening?
And I think we'd all think that it was lavish.
Yeah. We beat up on Judas,
Yeah, it
right?
wasn't just Ritz crackers and Velveeta.
That's right. Yeah. But Judas asked the question that everybody in that room had to be thinking, right? Isn't that wasteful? Isn't that a wasteful?
Do we have nard in our world, or I've never, I mean, I certainly know perfume and,
Did you read the story of Tom, right?
yes.
So she, for those of you who haven't read, she writes a story about Tom, and Tom, wanted to be, well, he wanted to be baptized, and in the Methodist theology, Rachel said, what if I anoint you with oil? And the amount of oil she used was way too much, and everything smelled like this oil, right? But I don't know that she had the connection of nard. I think it was just, it's like I don't even know, she may have even said it was a different kind of anointing oil. So I don't know much about nard,
it
and
has
how it,
strong, heavy, earthy fragrance. Often described as a mix of woody, spicy, and musky notes.
there you go.
Oh,
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
okay.
Sounds perfect for feet.
Yes, that's right. Your feet need to be a little woodsy and musky.
You can get it.
So yeah, let's talk about Judas for a second.
Okay,
What do you make of Judas's response to this event? What does he say, first of all?
Should have given this money from this for the poor.
and the writer assumed that this was, he had a hidden motive.
Right, that's right. Yeah, there's this parentheses in there, that, John, the gospel writer, says. But he didn't really mean it. Judas was a jerk, right? And this is, many years after everything that Judas had done, and the whole story of Judas, and the tradition of Judas was what the tradition of Judas is, right? And so the editorial comment could be understood as well. She actually has an interesting, she like takes up for him a little bit. It's like, really? I mean, is it that bad? Because I think everybody was probably thinking the same thing. Everybody was wondering why would you not? Now, maybe he was a thief, maybe he was stealing from the purse, maybe all that's true, yes. But in that moment, the tension and the awkwardness and the kind of the immensity of what has just happened here? Judas or somebody. I mean, in other stories, when something similar happens, it's the Pharisee or it's the other disciple or it's the crowd. Somebody says, well, why are you doing this? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they're kind of indignant.
Yeah,
And that Jesus didn't even give him any response at all.
yeah, right.
Just ignored it.
That's right.
Right, which is kind of insulting when you think about it.
Yeah.
To Judas.
What else about that Judas experience?
Well, could it be that Jesus knew that Judas was skimming from the four of the
Yeah,
jar?
right.
Skimming from the jar of the fourth.
Yeah,
Also, I'm sure he knew it was, anointing for
yeah,
his death.
yeah. His response is, it's book. Sorry, you have to go back to.
Well, this kind of goes back to the three wise men and the gifts.
Yes,
Right?
great connection. That's a great
Yeah,
connection.
totally.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
That's right.
Yeah.
frankincense. Well, especially myrrh, right? I
Yeah,
mean, myrrh comes as a gift. Like, why are you giving a baby a death spice, right? A burial spice. But and it's very extravagant. Did you all read in the book, those of you who read the book, how much it would have cost her to break this and use this? Yeah, basically like a year's salary,
Wow.
for this one moment, this one event.
surely she showed them how much she thought of Jesus.
Yeah,
I mean, they must have thought, my, she really,
that's it. That's it.
Well, he had been saying that he was gonna go to Jerusalem and they were gonna
Right,
kill him.
right.
And so I'm sure she's not the only one who knew,
Yeah.
besides Jesus, what this was all about. I think she knew that, he was heading in towards his death, and
Yeah.
so she was worshiping him and, pouring the spice
Right.
over that they used for death.
Right.
That's extravagant love.
That's right, yeah.
I have to admit that I relate to Judas a little bit in his, the frugality or the attitude of
Mhm.
frugality, I guess, and not wanting to be, whether he was sincere in it or not wanting to waste something or
Right.
feeling like there might have been a better purpose for it, it's so costly. You could have sold it on eBay for $500.
That's right, that's right, yeah.
You see what we do with other people's churches, look, Catholic churches that are so ornate. And,
Yeah, that's right.
it's not uncommon. I can remember my folks saying it,
Yeah,
why are they got such an ornate place
Yeah.
that they have to worship, that money could be used in
Right,
other
that's right.
ways.
the Church of the Resurrection built their stained glass window, to the tune of, I don't know, hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million, right? There were people that left the church for that, kind of this Judas reason, to say, this is not, this.
So how do you figure that? I mean,
Yeah,
how do you make that, because Jesus does call us to give to the poor,
Yeah,
to give everything away.
that's right.
So how do you, in your head, how do you
Balance.
reconcile, there are these organizations, these churches that have spectacular gold everywhere, and then, and
Right,
how much they could be doing
right,
to feed the poor.
But my recent version of that is that I brought 2 antique clocks to Lawrence with me. And I took the older of the 2 that they belonged to Dave's parents, and I gave Mark's jeweler $500 to get this antique clock working.
wow,
I mean, that right now sounds frivolous to me, and I could have fed the poor and traded my yellow car in for a different, less elaborate car. So I really do apply those things to me.
Yeah, it's hard
Yeah.
to say,
Uh-huh.
Well, I think in this case, you're giving everything away to live for Jesus. And so on one hand, yes, giving to the poor is something that is part of our calling. That's what Jesus wants us to do. And on the other hand, what better use could there be than to anoint Jesus
Right,
before his death,
Yeah.
to
right,
show the love that she gave him.
yeah. Yeah,
So,
and
I mean,
I think all these answers are right, and the only other thing I'd add is that I wouldn't want it to be a false dichotomy to say we have to choose between extravagant worship and extravagantly helping the poor. I think if we're gonna give something up, it should be a third thing, right? Those are both good things to be doing, right? Is there a third thing about maybe I shouldn't have as big a house or as big a car or, 10 vacations a year or something, right? I mean, is there something else I could give up so that I can practice both extravagant worship and giving to the poor, right? Those should not be the thing we fight about.
Seems like a lot of judgment going on here.
Yeah, right, yeah,
Judging Mary for what she's doing
yeah, right,
and judging Judas' motive.
that's right, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and one more Judas comment before we go on. I mean, I think because this is something that irks me sometimes when folks take this line. So Jesus responds to Judas and says, "You will always have the poor among you," and she is doing this beautiful thing, right? And I think that's the false dichotomy point. Jesus is not saying you have to choose between, but people use that all the time to say either don't spend money for worship or for buildings or whatever, instead only give it to the poor, or do great things with your building, but don't give it to the poor. I mean, I've heard that phrase used often and again to say, well, you're always going to have the poor amongst you, so don't bother, right? But that don't bother line is not what Jesus said. And it's not, go ahead.
I can remember when we started hosting families,
Oh.
Family Promise.
Yeah,
And there were churches who pulled away and
Yeah.
said, no,
Yeah.
we're not gonna do that. And I've
Right.
always, in my head, I've always thought, how do you turn people away?
right,
Now, our building is built for that. I mean, I get that.
yeah,
But there are other buildings in this community that are built for that as well. And
sure,
many of whom did not participate. And it always kind of,
right.
but you're right. You know, Laverne, here I am sitting there judging that church because they didn't do what I wanted to do.
We all do it.
That's right.
Yeah, but that's a good example, and I am appreciative of what our church does. You know, what we do with our building, because we have made space for worship, we poured
Right,
ourselves into that.
right,
But we also open it up, you know, for the use of the community and
right.
get
Yeah.
the poor ministered to
Mhm.
by that.
That's right.
In some ways.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think there were people who were a little bit anxious when we spent as much money re-leathering the organ, right? That was an extravagant purchase on the behalf of worship,
and I
right?
know especially people who don't understand the value of our organ.
Yeah, especially people who don't like the
So
organ.
Jesus brought us
And that was rare. I mean, I think most of our folks get it, but I
Thought it
think,
was, yeah, they thought, what is this? This is silly.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's not, because if you want the organ to work.
sure. It's either
The leathers have to
working
be
organ or not working.
in good condition or else it's not.
But I think, isn't that a helpful piece of that, right? To say that would feel to some like, well, that money could have been given instead to the poor, right? And again, whether Judas or not was stealing from the purse, the point is that he named something I think is this battle within us, right? To say what are the things that we want to be extravagant about, what are the things that we want to be generous about. And that's kind of where she turns in the last part of the chapter. She asks this question of, oh, there was the other line, that's just back to the Judas point, that often gets left out, right? When we say, the poor will always be with us. What they miss is Jesus was quoting Deuteronomy 15:11. Since there will never cease to be some in need on the earth, I therefore command you, open your hand to the poor and needy neighbor in your land. Right? And so it's always that. It's never you'll always have the poor among you, so don't bother. It's always, you'll always have the poor among you. Look for them and give what you can, right? And so both of these, extravagance in worship and extravagance in generosity to the poor, are not, it's not a false dichotomy. It's not, well, we need to do one or the other. Jesus asks us to do both. And so she does that in this last, she's got some great stuff about grace in there too. I didn't get through all that stuff, but then she asks this question about our offering. What is it that we might offer? She says the beauty of an unlikely offering is that it catches the world off guard. It does not follow the rules of efficiency or practicality. Rather, an unlikely offering comes from within. Think of a nurse who stays late to comfort a patient who is struggling to make sense of his new health crisis. The mechanic who volunteers to fix cars for single parents. The gardener who grows fresh vegetables to share with the local pantry. These gifts may not come with fanfare, but they carry the intoxicating fragrance of God's love into spaces so desperately in need. She goes on to ask, what do you have in your hands, your home, your heart, that can be poured out as a gift? How would you respond to that question?
Well,
Question makes you think.
yeah, specifically, I think food.
Uh-huh, right, yes.
We can offer food,
Yeah.
to, um. To people who are poor and needy, to people who gather for, after, for a funeral, or, I mean. That's the first thing that enters my mind,
Yeah,
but I also think. That, people tend to point fingers at others.
yeah,
Churches do this as well. But I think Jesus shows us what discernment is about,
hmm,
that we can look for opportunities to help people, to help the poor, needy, blind, I mean,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
And also at the same time, have a worship experience that we enjoy, and
yeah,
discernment takes place.
right.
And
And
Jesus is the big discerner.
sure. Right, and that's again why I think that's great, Pat. I think it's the both and is kind of what I'm trying to say, right? Is that that when we come together for worship, we are inspired to care for the poor, right? And when we care for the poor, we see God's beauty around us, and we're inspired to worship. And so it's not an either or, right? It is a both and. Well, maybe that could be some homework over the next several days is to keep kind of praying through, thinking through this story. She says, what, or pause to reflect and journal, right? So maybe if you're a journaler, you can go and write some of this in response to this question. What is my unlikely offering? Write about skills, resources, acts of love that may seem small or unconventional, but could bless others. Pat's offer of food, right? As we think about.
Sometimes small offerings can be as good as a great big one.
Absolutely,
Exactly.
absolutely.
That's what you can give.
She's got a thing in the chapter about random acts of kindness. Sometimes it's just that small act. You see somebody's at the grocery store struggling with their kid who's screaming, for this or that. Maybe you say, maybe you tell the person who's checking them out to say, hey, can you put $50 on there, on the next person's bill or something like that? Because I think that it's small. I mean, $50 is not too small, but it's something small like that. It could be a game changer for a lot of them.
Yeah.
So that can be our kind of reflection for the week. I do have, for those who want an extra book, I have one more book here. If somebody wants to purchase one, or not. I mean, I think it works just as well to come and kind of hear and listen to one another and be impacted. So that can be our work when we come back next week. Is maybe think a little bit about, did you have some unlikely offering thoughts as we work through Lent together? Any final thoughts before I offer the closing prayer? Or
I really
questions?
appreciate the idea that Jesus was, he came here partially to talk about both and,
Yeah,
because people were expecting a Messiah who was gonna uphold the law
yeah,
and, you know, take out the Romans.
yeah,
I mean, lots of big expectations,
yeah,
and Jesus came to fulfill the law and to show people how the law should be part of your lives,
sure,
everyday life,
that's right.
in a
that's right.
much different way than
Thank you,
they
Hannah.
ever would have imagined. Bye-bye,
Okay, okay,
ever would have imagined.
yeah, that's right,
And that's why they just couldn't believe that
that's right,
he was the one, many of them.
that's right.
Because he certainly wasn't what they expected.
Sure, that's right. Yeah. That's the unexpectedness, the unlikeliness of it, right? That's good. Any other kind of final thoughts or questions that you still want to chew on this week?
Well, this doesn't have anything to do with that, but would you explain again national Christianity?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I think I closed that thing, Dixie, that I read from. Why don't I do this, Dixie? Why don't I, and for anybody else that wants it, I can pull up pretty quickly, the thing from, Baptist Joint Committee. There's like a one-page explainer. And I could give that to anybody who wants one, today. Marcia, if you want it later, you can get it later as well. But that would be, it has the definition that I included in the sermon, but then also, it's got some more kind of.
Well, does it
explanation.
mean that all of this country is supposed to be Christian? What?
So it's the language that Baptist Joint Commission or Joint Committee uses is a fusing the assumption that if you're a good American, you're a good Christian. If you're a good Christian, you're a good American. And it has to be both, right? You can't be a good American and not be a good Christian. You can't be a good Christian and not be a good American. And that fusing can cause some pretty significant issues and problems. I mean, it seemed to be the opposite of what the founders wanted. They built it into the Bill of Rights to say we're going to have this separation between these things. Because they had that option, and everybody in most of the colonies, except for Roger Williams and Rhode Island, all the rest of the colonies had if you're going to be a citizen of Maryland, you have to be a good Catholic, right? If you're going to be a citizen of Virginia, you have to be a good
Episcopalian.
Episcopalian. I couldn't remember what that.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God. A simplistic way of putting it is nations can't be Christian. It's an individual thing.
Right. That's right. That's good.
It's pretty radical, girl.
Either accept Christ or you don't.
Uh-huh.
And you accept being a follower of Christ above everything else.
Right.
And I've never believed my country right or wrong because I'm married to a historian.
You've seen a lot of the wrong, right?
I've seen a lot of the wrong.
Yeah.
And to face up to that is just like individuals facing up to their own sinfulness.
Yeah. That's right.
We need to recognize that.
Yeah.
And try to correct as much of it as we can.
Sure.
Would that mean that you think you'd have to be a Christian because you're an American? No.
No, but there are some people.
Some people, that's
Exactly.
Christian
But
nationalism.
Christian nationalism would believe that, yes. That would-
And see, and I think, like I said the other day, when I grew up, it seemed like a lot of people went to church because it was a thing to do.
That's right.
And today I think they go because they believe.
That's right.
That's a good
That's right.
distinction.
Yeah.
And that would be the same thing.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think isn't that a great connection with our story today, right? I mean, here's this extravagant belief that it cost her something, right? If it's just everybody's American, everybody's a Christian, it doesn't cost us anything, right? There's no challenge to that. then it's not what she demonstrated for us. She demonstrated the cost of following Jesus, right? And for her, that was a significant cost, right? And so I think for us, to your point, is that it's not just a part of the cultural, or it shouldn't be just a part of a thing. Well, that's what I don't believe in this Jesus stuff, but we all go to church, so I'm going to go, right? Seems to be the pretty much opposite of
Well,
what.
the other misconception that a lot of these national Christians have
Uh-huh.
is they talk about our forefathers being Christians.
Sure,
And
right,
they weren't.
right, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I read a book several years ago, called The Faiths of Our Fathers. And we make this kind of these bold statements about all the founding fathers believed this one thing, and they didn't. They were all very different. I mean, several of them were kind of non-Christian deists. That's right. Some were really strong Christians. Sam Adams was one of the patriots, and he was a strong Christian. There were other folks that were, John Leland, who was a Baptist who kind of pushed for some of the language that was in the Bill of Rights. I mean, that was because of his faith, right? And that was and he was very much a Christian, right? So there were some Christians, but in general, to say that this was formed, I mean, the language is a way to say, in the Bible, Israel is the nation of God, but it doesn't say anything about America. So let's just say we're the new nation of God, right? I mean, it's a way to make our nation the most godly of nations, right? And it's not just us that, we talked the other day, right? You see about it, Germans did it with the Nazis, right? And said, if you're going to be a good German, you need to follow Jesus. And if you're going to be a good follower of Jesus, you have to be a good Nazi. And so it's easy for us to see outside in, well, that's ridiculous, right? But it's more insidious when it's happening in our own context, right? And sometimes hard to see. So I'll give you that. I'll print out that explainer for anybody else coming over that.
And the recent example of the Buddhist monks who marched through 3 seasons from Texas to DC,
Yeah,
advocating peace.
yeah,
A lot of people that I know who don't go to church were intrigued with them and paid attention to them.
yeah.
And the nationalistic church, at best ignored them and otherwise, was so critical of them. Well, did they accept Jesus? No, but they're at considerable sacrifice marching to advocate for peace.
And in a way reflected Jesus, right? I mean, this
Uh-huh.
is Gandhi said multiple times, he said that, I want to follow your Jesus. It's just for the Jesus followers. Those are the people I probably, the Christians that I'm talking.
Right.
So, all right, I'm gonna print 6 of these and they'll be in the office. Good question. And again, I don't think it's completely off subject, because I do think that it connects with again the power of faith and the sacrifice of faith that a lot of us don't always have the practice to make. Okay,
All right.
closing prayer. Gracious and generous God, thank you for receiving our unlikely offerings, those given from the heart and love. Teach us to give in faith even when we question our efforts and how they're being perceived. Open our eyes to see you in every act of love. May the gifts that we offer, however ordinary or extravagant they may be, become expressions of your grace in the world. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Marcia, did you make it on okay? Did you hear? Were you able to hear us and stay connected? I hope.
I could hear you finally. But I didn't have a good connection, but that wasn't your fault. I finally got it at the very end, but I could hear you the whole time.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Marcia.
That's good.
Hi, Marcia.
Hi.
Glad you joined us. We'll same bad time, same bad channel next week. We'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye.
I won't be able to be here next week,